Welcome to Indie Spotlight. Like a scared little kid with unexplained powers who's just found a new friend, we can't help but bombard our guests with questions. Please prepare for the lightning round. Guest, what's your name?
Uh-huh. Kodi Gonzaga.
What are your pronouns, Kodi?
They, them.
Where do you live, Monarch?
Los Angeles, California. I don't know. I forgot where I was for some reason.
What kind of creative are you?
Mostly a writer, storyteller. I design TTRPGs, but I originated with creative writing.
Cool. And what is your project?
It is Extraordinary, which is a game about kids with extraordinary powers on the run from danger in the ordinary world.
Cool. Welcome, Kodi. Thank you for being here today. So let's just get right into Extraordinary, which I've had the chance to review at least some of the aspects of the game. What inspired you to make a TTRPG about homeless kids with superpowers?
Um, so I have always really loved a mix of different genres that have those aspects. I was a huge fan of the X-Men. I love
Yeah.
it when powers not, it's great when powers give you cool powers that you can fight villains with, but I also love it when there are like extra strings attached to those powers that like being out of the ordinary makes you ostracized or a target. It feels very, I don't want to say comforting, but it feels real to me in a way that I very much enjoy exploring in games and in stories. And then I've been I started writing when I was 9, and even in my mid to late 20s, I am still mostly focused on like writing YA stories and telling stories about kids or younger adults and stuff like that. I don't know why. It's kind of just my bread and butter. It's kind of where I feel the most comfort and feel like I can do the most good storytelling.
Yeah.
And so those two genres mesh really well. I also was a huge fan of the Maximum Ride series, huge fan of Percy Jackson. One of them is better than the other. And I never read Animorphs, which is apparently the game is very Animorphs-esque, but I've never actually read Animorphs. I should, though. I've heard I'd like it. Um, Stranger Things was another thing that kind of inspired me for this game. Um, I I remember watching Stranger Things and watching other media like E.T. and like Super 8 and stuff like that, where I'm like,
Sure.
dang, I love these stories about kids. I wish all of them had powers, not just one of them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's very much where the vibe came from. And then for the system, I what was it? It's Belonging Outside Belonging. The first one of those that I really read was Wander Home by Jay Dragon. And then I started delving deeper and deeper. I read Sleepaway, and then I read the original Dream Askew and Dream Apart. And the first few iterations of this game were so complicated because I was like, it's not complicated enough. And then I realized it doesn't, that's the point. It's a rules light system. And so after that, I went back to the drawing board and figured out what I wanted it to be and how I wanted it to act as mechanically, and now we have the game. Yay.
Cool. Well, let's see. Yeah, reading through it, it definitely feels like a YA novel, like come that you can bring to life, right?
Hmm.
Um, I recognize all the stuff that you mentioned because I was a librarian for a few years, and even though I was a '90s kid, I have never read Animorphs. I know it's one of my great shames. One of the things I just did not indulge in when I was a kid. I saw those books everywhere. Everybody was reading
Oh
them.
yeah, the covers are hard to forget. They are a bit horrifying.
Yeah, yeah. And like really I heard like a YouTube video later on that explained what they were all about, and it was like, oh, they're child soldiers when it
Yeah.
comes right down to it. So
Hmm.
what was
Yeah,
her
which
name?
is yeah.
K.A. Applegate, is that who it is?
Yes.
Yep, she would have been right at home writing a Gundam series, I think. Um, all right, so that's cool. YA is definitely the feel that we've got here, folks. Um, so by design, Extraordinary doesn't operate on dice or with a dedicated GM. So
Nope.
Can you explain how that works?
Right. So, um, the game as it is now, which I really came into this iteration of the game after reading through Dream Askew and Dream Apart, which are the original Belonging Outside Belonging games by Avery Alder.
Mm.
And so those Dream Askew particularly is inspired heavily by Apocalypse World. It's technically a PBTA game, although it doesn't use similar mechanics. It is definitely the the mechanics in Dream Askew. There are like I think there's strong moves, weak moves, and like you can always do moves. I forget what those are called, which sort of are meant to directly relate to a mixed success for the middle ones, and then a failure, and then a complete success in PBTA. Um, the other important thing that I drew from that game were in different games they're called different things, but you have the playbooks, which are the characters, but you also kind of have playbooks for the world,
Yeah.
which is like I call them aspects. I forget what they're called in Dream Askew. In Galactic Second Edition, they're called pillars. And so I figured out through reading Dream Askew and then like fiddling with the mechanics and playtesting my own game, that those world playbooks, those aspects are kind of like the thematic through lines of the story. The six in Extraordinary are the ordinary, which
Mm-hmm.
represents the ordinary world, the extraordinary, which is the magic system, the danger, which is the thing chasing the kids that wants to grab them because they're extraordinary, the need, which represents their like being homeless and needing to take care of themselves and
Mm-hmm.
eat and like do upkeep for living. And then the system, which is stuff like cops, schools, and social services, things that would be that are part of the ordinary world, but are specifically geared towards like controlling and catching, but like also protecting, but also like keep making sure the kids stay in line, sort of thing. And then the design is one I added later into the process, which is meant to be like fate or the gods or some sort of extraordinary force that's like enacting its will upon the kids intentionally. Um, and so, you don't have to play with all the aspects. Ordinary, extraordinary, and danger are pretty integral. Need you can kind of mess around with because maybe some people have triggers related to the need, so you don't want to necessarily include that. Same with the system, and then the design. You don't have to fate and the gods and that kind of thing are not necessarily a story, not necessarily a part of every type of story that you're going to be telling with this game. So you can, you don't have to use that. But it works as a GM list where whenever you're not playing a kid in a scene, and so one of the things I encourage people to do is split the party during the first scene, split the
Yeah.
party, and then as different groups of kids are kind of interacting, the people who aren't playing in that scene as their kids pick up an aspect sheet and sort of become the GM of that moment. So like if you want to say you're in a mall and some of the kids are like, "Oh, one of the things we wanted to do was like meet some mean girls in the mall cafeteria." And someone's like, "I got it." And they're not in the scene, but they pick up the ordinary and they're like, "All right, so I'm going to be these mean girls." And then the other kids get to play off of that, and then it, bounces back and forth. It's it's a great way to like encourage people to step up and contribute to the story and be fans of the characters other than their own characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the way instead of having dice like determine, because I think something that I don't know if it still bothers me, but it bothered me when I was first designing the game, where I was like, okay, you have to always account for what the dice are going to roll, or not necessarily account for it, but always be like, okay, I really want to do this thing. It'd be really great for the story. The GM also wants this. The dice may say no. And I wanted to design a system for these kinds of stories where if you gave up control of your own story, it was always intentional, and it was always like it was always a point of, okay, I can set the limits of what I want to happen, and you can screw with my character as much as you want inside those limits, but I also have control of when that happens and how. And so that was kind of why I drifted towards the Belonging Outside Belonging system, because it doesn't use dice, it uses tokens, and whenever you kind of put your character in a really tough position or in a hard spot, they're in danger, they're in trouble, whatever, you earn a token. And then whenever you want to do something to kind of get out of trouble or like resolve a situation, you spend a token. In Extraordinary, you can earn and spend up to 3 tokens. And that I added that because I kind of wanted there to be a like degree of how bad, it's like an indicator of how bad you were willing to let it get. So, sure. And another important thing is the people who are the momentary GMs who are holding the aspects, they don't earn or spend any tokens. Only the kids do, because it's about the kids. The kids are the main characters. And so the kids are the people playing kids in any scene are the ones pushing the story forward, or the ones saying, I want this. Does someone want to pick up a sheet and play this for me? And then, they can be like, okay, I want to do this thing. Oh, I don't have any tokens. Can I still do the thing with this intention? But it's so much of a negotiation, which is very PBTA. That is a very Baker's design philosophy, where the game and the story is a conversation, and so it's always more important that you explain what you're okay with and what you're not okay with in the story than it is like, oh, you succeeded or failed. I like to say that the token earning and spending, they're not failure and success moves, they're conflict instigating and conflict resolving moves. Because you can still successfully punch an FBI agent in the face or use your magic or whatever, but either it's not going to do what you intended, or there will be unforeseen consequences or whatever if you're earning tokens. Or you could just straight up fail. It's up to what you and the momentary GM decide during play together.
Yeah, it's very narrative focused. It encourages you to really engage with the other players. And I really like that about it. So it seems like it seems like you could almost play like an episode of a TV show each time that you play.
Very much. It is actually structured that way.
Yeah.
So each episode is kind of like I call them like adventures. It's definitely a long form game. Like this is meant to be a game played over multiple sessions, dealing with multiple different arcs and storylines and things like that. Because each kid is kind of like the main character of their own story, so they should each get time to breathe and have their own stories get told and stuff. But yeah, that in the structure of the game, there's adventures, which are kind of like the episodes of a TV show. And very important step is when you create the adventure, you're like, okay, here's the premise. It's like the blurb you see at the bottom of a TV episode when it comes out. And then you kind of, all the players will say, okay, here are the things that I want to hit as in the story. Like, oh, we're going to a mall. I want a scene where mean girls in the cafeteria bully my character. Or like, oh, I want to see the relationship between my character and your character develop a little more. So if we split off, we should go together. Or like, I want to see a big fight in the Macy's or something like that. And then you kind of use those during play. Those are called player interests. You kind of use those as touchstones to really inform which scenes you go to, what order the scenes go in. And so everyone, it's a really, and it helps because when you don't have a GM, you don't have one person sort of dictating the narrative and planning where things are going to go. And so I tried to build a lot of tools into the gameplay itself that would help define where the story could go, would help give touchstones for where people wanted to take the story, remind them what you were doing in this episode and stuff like that.
Cool. Well, I mean that's a good explanation of how it works, but here's a question for you now. What kind of character options do you have for the player characters? Like what
too many.
there are a lot. Like I noticed that there were a lot of sort of like they're not called archetypes. So what did you call them?
They're playbooks. Yeah, they're playbooks. Is what I called them in the game. Yeah. There are 15. For context, like the original Dream Askew and Dream Apart have 6 playbooks each because they're like separate games. And then like I think Wander Home has 10, and I went hold my beer and just went crazy with designing playbooks.
And you took a lot from the archetypes that you see in these YA novels and TV shows and things like that.
Yeah. One thing that I used to kind of help inform their creation was originally there were just 10, and then I added the design, and that gave me 5 more. Because each playbook, and they're written somewhere on the playbook itself, but each playbook is meant to represent like a struggle between 2 different aspects. So like the average is the struggle between the ordinary and the extraordinary, because it's this kid who used to be normal and now isn't and is struggling with that. And then like the chosen is ordinary in design because it's similar to the average, but it's specifically about having a grand destiny, not just being out of the ordinary. And then, I don't know, like I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but that was how I was like, okay, how many playbooks do I want to have? And I kind of framed it as like, okay, what is the core conflict of this archetype, like emotional conflict? And I built, and like I used those 2 aspects to kind of inform how I wrote the prompts on the playbook. Yeah. And then it's also each playbook, they have suggested powers, but every playbook can be any power you can think of. Because I wanted the playbooks, in the same way that the aspects are themes of the world, the playbooks are like emotional character arcs of the character. So like I like to say that you can be, every single playbook in the game can be a werewolf. How you feel about being a werewolf and how being a werewolf has influenced your life up to this point and what you want to do as a werewolf, that's what your playbook defines.
Okay. And so while we're talking about powers, it sounded like, and I don't know if this was in the materials I saw, but I didn't see any specific powers detailed.
They're under the playbook, like the play set sheet that you print out. Each playbook has like a list of pick an extraordinary power, and there's always a something of your own invention option, which is basically my way of saying if none of these fit, make it up. Combine multiple if you want. Just do whatever. And so yeah, like there's you can have psychic powers, you can be a descended from different kinds of paranormal creatures, you could be god children, you could be whatever. Like it's really up to what the people at the table want. So yeah.
Cool. So here's a kind of a loaded question. When you use powers in the system, are you going to feel like a badass or an outcast?
It depends on if you're earning or spending tokens.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
It depends on the situation and what you are okay with. I think feeling like a badass is typically the spending tokens. If you spend 3 tokens, you're basically taking control of the narrative for this next few minutes. So you can be as badass as you want. And even when you spend tokens, you can resolve a situation and it, broadly is good for your character, but maybe you're conflicted about that. Maybe you're a living weapon and you're fighting agents and you're like, all right, I'm going to spend 2 tokens to take down these agents. And you do that, but you get blood on your hands and you remember that you're very, very good at taking people down and fighting and hurting people. And how do you feel about that? And yes, it's helpful in the moment, but is it good for you as a person? That's, and you can even have that if you earn tokens too. It's really up to like the moment and what you want to focus on in the moment, and also how many tokens you currently have. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let me ask you this. When does the Kickstarter for Extraordinary launch?
So the second Kickstarter for Extraordinary launches on February 1st, 2026.
Okay.
I ran a Kickstarter for it earlier this year, which was for the one in February that's coming up is for $5,000 because it's just going to be, I just need that much money to do a 100-book print run. The one that I did in March of this year was for $20,000. Well, and it's because I had I knew what I wanted from the artwork, and the artwork was going to be really expensive. And then like I wanted a hardback copy. I knew I had a lot of like, this is what I want from the game, desires. And I managed to raise like over $15,000, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And like really made me happy. But also I didn't get any of that money because it's all or nothing. But it was also just really like, I think failing that was a blessing in disguise because of the tariff situation.
Sure.
But also, yeah, but also it kind of helped me realize, oh, my game doesn't have to be super duper fancy and covered with beautiful artwork and amazing. It can just be it's a PDF on itch right now, and I'm honestly okay with that because it's still the game I made, and it's got all the writing in it. It's still got Stella's beautiful artwork, not as much as I would have liked, but it still has, her amazing art and illustrations. And so like I think failing the Kickstarter earlier this year was a blessing in disguise. And I'm really hoping that I'm able to fund, unless, fingers crossed, but I'm really hoping I'm able to fund in February so that I can have like physical copies, because physical copies make me happy.
Yeah.
And I can see my book on shelves in game stores and feel fulfilled in life.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
There is something to having just a physical copy that you can touch
Yeah.
and it smells nice and
Yeah,
all that stuff.
it's so validating because you're like,
Yeah.
it's real. I made it. I can hold it. It's good.
Cool.
So.
So, who else helped this project come to life?
I mean, in terms of who else worked on the project, kind of like as I would credit as being involved in the copies, it was just me and Stella, really. Stella did all the artwork and I did all the writing and a lot of the play testing. However, so many of my friends and like people in my community play tested the game with me because you can't play it on your own.
Sure.
I have one friend, she got some friends together and they would record their sessions for me and send them to me. So I wasn't there to like correct. So like that was so helpful for knowing, oh, here's what I need to rewrite in the rules themselves so that people who aren't with me can understand it. And like playtesting, I shout out to the Geeky Teas, shout out to Geeky Teas, the store in Burbank in general, but especially the indie story games community. It's on Meetup, but it's every other Monday. We just go and play indie games for a few hours every other Monday night. And some people from like my writing group that I'm in, people that I know from college and high school, like, all the various friends I have, they would help me play. I tried, and I run it at conventions too. Shout out to all the people who played it in Gen Con 2024.
Nice.
That was awesome. Those are some of the best sessions. And then like, but yeah, I tried to get everyone's names to like record in the book, and it got too much. So I was just like, special thank you to all the playtesters. I'm sorry I didn't get all your names. ah. But yeah, it's been like the writing has all been me, the design has all been me with like a lot of help from play testers and everything like that. And then Stella did the artwork, but this game wouldn't exist without the community I have around me. So
Very cool. It does take it sort of takes a village to raise a TTRPG in a way.
yeah. It takes a community to do really anything.
Yeah. So, Cody, this is not your first game. What can you tell us about your other games?
Let's see. So this isn't my first game. Yeah, I think it's the first game that I was like gonna I had such dreams and I was like, I'm gonna publish it. It's gonna be a real thing. But I've written a lot of other games. I've written, what did I write before EO? I know, Down the Road to the End of the World,
Mm-hmm.
which is it's a tabletop game about a journey through a post-apocalypse. It uses the Other Kind dice system that's also used in Siren by the Bakers.
Hmm.
Um, and so that one's really, I actually played that at StrategicCon earlier this week, and that was really fun. I've made a few one pagers. I've made a few like a lot of my games are hacks of pre-existing systems.
Hmm.
So I have a Badger and Coyote hack called Golden and Rascal, which is about like siblings and like shared sibling trauma. I have a game that I technically wrote after kind of finishing Extraordinary, but it's only available on itch, so as most of my games are right now. And so that one's Voxen, a Firebrand's hack, which is I call it my sexy superheroes game because
Okay.
it's Firebrands is such a like Firebrands is very much a oh, we're in tense scary situations and also we're all horny for some reason. It's like The King is Dead. Mobile Frame Zero Firebrands is what it's based off of. And so I made a game that was basically very X-Men. Supers are an oppressed minority in a megacity. There's three factions. There's the Guardians, who are state-sponsored superheroes, the Marauders, who are like super supremacist terrorists, and then there's the Renegades, who are unregistered and unaffiliated with either group and just trying to do their best with their powers. And you have to have one from each at your table, and you're all doing like dumb stuff and getting into messy relationships, which is the core of a Firebrands game.
I mean, it's maybe
Yeah,
the core of superhero relationships, right?
perhaps, it depends on the genre, but yes,
Oh, definitely the
typically
X-Men.
yes.
Definitely the X-Men.
Definitely the X-Men. Definitely a lot of Marvel media.
Yeah.
A lot of Marvel. I'm like thinking Fantastic Four, and I'm like, if there isn't a messier relationship thing out there except for X-Men, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. No, that's cool. So I think I looked at some of your previous stuff when I was, looking at this, and I think it feels to me, and you may have even alluded to this earlier, but you've got themes of like journeys and kiddos and superpowers in a lot of your previous work. So it kind of feels like you've been circling towards Extraordinary for a while, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
What
for
do,
sure.
what do you think about those things that resonates with you?
Oh, well, I mean, I when it comes to journeys, I still don't know. I'm still trying to figure that one out because I do like being, having a solid place. But it's also just there's this weird like romantic ideal, romantic in the like storytelling sense, not necessarily romance, but like I think roads and I'm so deeply American because I have a bit of a disconnect from because I'm half Filipino, but I have a bit of a disconnect from my Filipino heritage. And then like and I'm half white too, and so I'm like I don't like there's no real cultural identity that I feel super strongly tied to except like Americana for some reason. And
Hmm.
a big part of Americana is roads and road trips, and so that's something that always has spoken to me. But in terms of like kids with powers, I mean, it's been a thing for me for as long as I can remember. I like stories about kids who are coming together and being friends, or they're siblings and they run away together, or they're like teenagers. Coming of age stories have always meant a lot to me. And then like superpowers, I love like superheroes and superpowers. I grew up in the heyday of the MCU. So like
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching the Avengers movies, and like a lot of the precursor, what is it, phase 1 Marvel stuff
Yeah.
in theaters. I remember like there were so many super good superhero movies that came out when I was a kid, and like those were so inspiring to me because they were, it would, I don't know, it's such a good, they're kind of like a mythos where, there are these beings that have such great power, but they're also so very human, and they also use that power to help others. And it's just, it speaks to me a lot. And so I think, and I always loved stories about like having, yeah, you have cool powers, but you're also not, you're not really part of society. You're like ostracized or excluded for whatever reason. And like, because, I'm, very obviously queer, I'm mixed, but like mostly white passing. I've got like, I, I have this weird relationship with binaries and with in groups and out groups and stuff like that. And so that really influences how I treat powers and anything that would put you outside of the norm in my stories.
Sure.
And also just like growing up, I really I just I didn't get to see a ton of stories about kids that were like me, or kids that,
Mm-hmm.
and when I did see those stories, they meant so much to me. And so I always kind of want to do I want to make those kinds of stories about kids, that kids who are kids now can read those or watch those or see those or play those and feel less alone. I think that's
Yeah.
always been my goal, with the stories I tell.
That was kind of my experience with X-Men when I first started reading them, like in the early 90s,
Hmm.
It's like, I was kind of a nerdy kid, didn't get along with kids at school, and I felt like, it feels like they get me.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot about the idea of being kind of like the outsider but a hero that
Yeah.
I think is always going to speak to the like young people, or really people of all ages. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
but maybe especially young people, because we all can feel like
We
that
all remember
sometimes,
what it
I
was
think.
like to be 15 and think you were
Yeah.
immortal and also try want to change the entire world to be better. We all
Yep.
remember that.
We do. Yeah. Oh man, feels like a while ago for
15.
me. But anyway,
Teenagers. No, gosh, I remember I made a vow to myself when I was a teenager that I would never forget what it was like to be a teenager, because it was terrible. And so, and I thus far I haven't. We'll see if I forget it when I turn 30, but I doubt that'll happen. I hope it doesn't happen. So
yeah, I think almost the only way to forget it is to, like, block it out in some way.
yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, good thing to hold on to. So,
Mhm.
Kodi, where can people find your previous work?
So people can find my TTRPGs at jastis.itch.io. Jastis is spelled Jaztice, and then .itch.io. You can find out more about me and about like my creative writing, because I do a lot of creative writing novels, and I haven't published any of them yet. I'm working on it. But I also write poetry. I have a web series I'm writing. You can find all that at www.kodigonzaga.com.
And all that will
Kodi
be
is,
in the show
yeah.
notes.
Oh, yay. Then I'm not gonna spell it. Figure it out. And yeah, those are the two places I tend to direct people. My website has links to every like the social medias that I use and
Mm-hmm.
everything else and my itch page and everything. The website's like the core where the center of the various projects. So um, if in doubt, go there. If you just like TTRPGs, just go to the itch page and then yeah.
Cool. And I got to ask this to, everybody. Do you have any
Hmm.
plans for new projects after Extraordinary that you feel like talking about today?
Um, I mean, I have so many projects. I have so many projects. I have too many per chance. And one of the TTRPGs, I'm actually working on an SRD right now. So
Okay.
like it's basically a I'm calling it a TTRPG equivalent to a video game physics engine.
Hmm.
Because that's it's like Cypher, like Fate, like all these systems that exist that kind of are just mechanics to throw a story onto. Um, the one I'm working on, I'm calling Misfits and Mayhem, but it's basically a less swingy and more I don't want to say it's a less swingy and a little bit more mechanical version of the Powered by Kids on Bike system,
Okay.
which is a stellar system. So it's already amazing. There's already so many iterations of it. But I'm making one more because why not? um,
Sure.
and then let's see what else. I'm working on another Belong Outside Belonging game. The first TTRPG I ever tried to design was called Stardust Blues, and it
Hmm.
was a space western um TTRPG. I originally made it in like traditional PBTA, and then I was like, not anymore. And now I'm trying to come back to it and design it in Belonging Outside Belonging, and that's going pretty well. I gotta write enough that I can start playtesting it, but that's in the works. I've got so many stories. I'm currently writing for the web series, it's not TTRPG related. Sorry, it's
That's okay.
the
Go ahead.
web series I have out, which is called Horner Paranormal. I'm currently working on book 3 of that, which is book. They're more like novellas than proper, like they're novella sized books. But I'm working on book 3 of that, and hopefully I'll be able to finish that and put it up on the site eventually. Yeah, I've got a lot of frying pans in the fire.
Yeah. Sounds like it. We've all got our like dream projects that we want to do after the current thing, right?
Oh
That's
yeah.
yeah. So okay. I think I'm about out of questions. So do you have anything you'd like to leave with the viewers and listeners with today?
Ooh, I mean, go follow the Kickstarter page, the pre-launch Kickstarter page for Extraordinary if you want a physical copy of it. If you don't want a physical copy of it, but you still want the game, you can just go to the itch page. You can just buy it for $12 on itch right now. Um, and yeah, that's the only call to action things I can think of. Uh, yeah, just hope you like the stuff I make. And if you want to support me, there's oodles of ways to do that on my website and elsewhere. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you for being here today, Cody. Folks,
Thank
the
you for
game is
having me.
Extraordinary. Make sure to check it out on February 1st on Kickstarter, or as you say, you can have a look at the sort of version 1, the first edition right now.
Hmm.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.